Hi, I'm Bex with the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, and I've been working with snow and avalanches for many years. This program is about enjoying the mountains, and most importantly, getting home safely every day. We couldn't do this alone. Many thanks to these great people for helping to bring this life-saving presentation your way. Please remember, this is not an avalanche class. The goal of this presentation is to make you aware that avalanches are a hazard in the mountains. To learn more, please take a field-based avalanche course and learn the basics of avalanche safety and how to manage your risk. This presentation will not do that. So who needs to know about avalanches? Well, it's anyone who goes onto snow-covered slopes. It's sobering to think that avalanches kill around 30 people every year in the United States. While some states see more avalanche deaths than others, avalanches can kill people anywhere with snow-covered mountains. Most avalanche victims die from suffocation. Nearly all the rest die from injuries that occur during the avalanche. Even with all the right gear, a quarter of avalanche victims don't survive. So how do we change these statistics? Well, we can start by not getting caught in the first place. And there is some good news. Avalanches are seldom random. In about 90% of all avalanche accidents, it's either the person or someone in their party that triggers a slide. That's good news because it gives us the power to avoid being caught in avalanches. Learning about avalanches can seem very overwhelming. You can follow some simple steps to avoid becoming an avalanche victim. Build a set of rituals or habits that are essential to safe backcountry travel. So let's start at the beginning. What is an avalanche? Well, basically, it's snow falling down a mountainside. You may not know this, but there are different types of avalanches, and some are more dangerous than others. Generally, there are loose snow and slab avalanches, and both of them can be either wet or dry. But by far the most dangerous are the dry slab avalanche. These are a cohesive plate of snow that shatters like glass when the weak layer beneath the slab collapses. In this video, you'll see the slab shatter and quickly accelerate down the slope. These avalanches are very difficult to escape because it feels like someone pulls the rug out from under your feet. In some cases, you can get off the moving slab by keeping your speed and going at a 45-degree angle off to the side. Or if you're near the crown, you can dig into the bed surface and watch the avalanche wash past you. Sometimes you can grab a tree, but you have to do this very quickly because once you pick up speed, these trees become dangerous obstacles. The bottom line is that it's very difficult to escape off a moving slab. Is this avalanche terrain? Well, yes, most everyone can tell this is avalanche terrain because there are avalanches. What defines it as a potential avalanche slope before there's obvious evidence? Slope steepness is one, a lack of vegetation below a steep slope is another. Some avalanche terrain is not big and obvious and doesn't have to be steep or gnarly to be risky. While the size of the slope does matter, the ultimate consequence of a slide depends on where it will take you. Avalanche terrain just needs to be steep enough to slide and have snow. Avalanches can occur in all kinds of terrain, even off roofs. So the danger of the terrain depends on both steepness and consequences. Here are 4 examples of terrain traps that could lead to bad consequences if you get caught. Hitting obstacles on the way down like trees, going off a cliff, or you could be buried deeply in a terrain trap like the bottom of a lake. And then slope steepness. This is the most important terrain factor. Most avalanches occur between 35 and 50 degrees. The problem is, that's right where we really have fun riding. Slab avalanches become more likely on slopes greater than 30 degrees and less likely on slopes that exceed 50 degrees. This is because the slopes at less than 30 degrees are usually not steep enough to slide, and slopes steeper than 50 degrees usually slough often enough that they do not build into slabs. For this reference, a black diamond slope at the ski area is around 35 or 40 degrees. Here is an example of what we call a locally connected slope. In some instances, you may be standing on a 30-degree slope, which would rarely slide on its own. However, a collapse you cause can propagate outward to the steeper slope, trigger an avalanche there, which may pull down your slope along with the steeper one. So it's not just the slope that we are on, but the slopes above and connected to us that are important. Here are some examples of avalanches that were triggered by someone some distance away from the actual slide. Most avalanche accidents occur outside of the ski resort boundary where no one is working to reduce the avalanche danger for us. Ski Patrol puts a lot of work into reducing avalanche danger inside a resort. No work is done on the other side of the rope. Inside the ski area boundary, the Ski Patrol uses explosives early in the morning before the public arrive to reduce the risk of avalanches. Remember that just a few feet outside the boundary can separate very safe snow from very dangerous snow. It's like watching the grizzly bears at the zoo. One side of the fence is a lot safer than the other. Remember, you are on your own the instant you leave the backcountry gate. So how do avalanches form? Snowfall builds layers over time. The layers dictate how likely avalanches are to release. In this video, the snowpack builds up over a series of storms throughout the winter. The snow under us builds a complicated relationship between the stronger and weaker layers. You can't see these layers when you travel over the snow surface. So it takes a little investigation to see what's going on. Here we have a strong, thick slab on top of a very weak layer of snow. This isn't how you'd want to build a house, and the snowpack's no different. So why do we care? We might just forget about these layers and then a storm comes and covers them up. If it's a very weak snow layer, just the weight of one person can cause a collapse that spreads out in all directions. The overlying slab will shatter. In this video, you can see the stronger slab shattering. Remember, I talked earlier about a systematic way to avoid avalanches? Well, first you need to get the gear. Basic essential avalanche rescue gear includes an avalanche transceiver, a shovel, and a probe. You need all of these tools to locate and find your partners quickly, and you don't have much time. Typically 15 minutes or less to find your partner and dig them out. Also recommended is an avalanche airbag. An Avalanche, used separately or incorporated into a pack, separates the carbon dioxide you breathe out from the fresh air you breathe within the snow. And it allows you to breathe for up to an hour under the snow. A record chip is often manufactured into clothing, boots, or helmets. But remember, you need an outside professional rescue group using specialized receiving units to find you. As you can see in this media, an avalanche airbag pack can increase your chances of staying near the top of avalanche debris. For those involved in a serious avalanche accident, research shows that airbags could save about half the lives of people who would have otherwise died. The good news is that they work. The bad news is they don't work all the time. Remember, 1 in 4 avalanche victims are killed by trauma, so no equipment will save you in those situations. Without rescue gear, it's nearly impossible to find your buried partner. It is literally like trying to find a needle in a haystack. You cannot find someone completely buried without a transceiver. A real rescue is scary, stressful, and can happen during harsh conditions. The only way to keep your head in these situations is to practice, then practice, and practice, and practice some more. Many ski areas now have transceiver parks. And here's a fun fact. Most pros practice transceiver searches once a week. So now we've got the gear. Now we need to get the training. Take a field-based avalanche course to learn the basics of avalanche safety and how to manage your risk. There are many public and private entities that provide avalanche training. Here in Colorado, you can visit the CAIC website for local resources. Other resources include the American Avalanche Association and the American Institute for Avalanche Research and Education. Every day when we go out into the backcountry, we want to do three things. Get the forecast, get the picture, and get out of harm's way. First, we want to get the forecast. A great resource exists to help you. Every day, professional avalanche forecasters work hard to be natural detectives. They perform tests to identify the types of avalanche problems, where it's safer to travel, where it's dangerous, the avalanche clues to look for, and how to avoid the hazard. They communicate critical avalanche information to the public in the avalanche forecast. It's like reading the daily newspaper for anyone going into avalanche terrain. The simplest piece of information you can get from the advisory is the danger rating. Although this is a general rating, if you read deeper into the details of the advisory, you'll get more of a description of the danger, where to find it, and what clues to look for. So we've got the gear, we've got the training, we've got the forecast, and now we want to get the picture. When you're out in the mountains, look around. There are 5 red flags to look for that tell us that avalanche conditions are dangerous. So what's the most obvious sign of avalanche danger? You guessed it, recent avalanches. Pay attention and compare whether the slopes are similar to those that you want to ride. Other signs of unstable snow include shooting cracks and feeling the snow drop or collapse underneath you. This can be accompanied by a whomping sound. Wind is a significant factor in avalanche activity. Avoid cornices and big pillowy drifts on steep slopes. Recent new snow? Significant new snowfall or rain can make the snowpack unstable for several days. Has it warmed up quickly? Strong solar radiation or extended periods of above freezing temperatures can cause the avalanche danger to rise. So we have our gear, we've got the training, we've read the forecast, we've been paying attention, and we have the picture. Now we need to get out of harm's way. How do we do this? Risk management relies on anticipating which slopes could avalanche today and avoiding those slopes. Don't hang out anywhere you could get hit by an avalanche from above. And consider how your actions could affect others. We are responsible for our own actions in avalanche terrain. Are you exposing others to risk without their consent? For examples, are there parties below you in an adjacent slope that might get caught in an avalanche you would trigger? The top photo is above is a skiers triggered avalanche that hit US Highway 550 in Colorado and closed the road for over 7 hours. The bottom photo is of a snowboard triggered avalanche on Mount Jumbo near Missoula, Montana, that ran into a neighborhood below the slope, killing one resident who was in her home at the time. Remember, avalanches affect everyone who goes into the mountains in the winter. Learning about avalanches can seem very overwhelming, but remember, there is this systematic step-by-step way to avoid becoming an avalanche victim. This is how the pros roll. Thank you and have a safe winter.